Hello everyone, welcome to the Azure SQL High Availability webinar. Let me introduce myself. Guys, my name is Prem. My full name is Prem Nidhi Sharma. I have done my master's in computer science. I have 15 plus years of experience in training and consultancy. I did my certification in Microsoft. I am MCSA, MCSE, and Microsoft certified trainer. Apart from that, I did my certification in Microsoft Azure, database administration, data engineering. So I did certification at on-premises as well as Azure SQL Cloud, Azure Cloud. So that is Azure SQL database admin, Azure data engineering, and Azure data analyst, Azure enterprise data analyst. So overall, I have 15 plus years of experience. I taught a lot of clients from globe. Uh, uh, some of the most are like Infosys, Wipro, TCS. Even I trained from the Microsoft corporate client as well. So guys, that is all about me. Now let's start our topic, which is Azure SQL high availability. So guys, when we discuss about high availability, so the picture comes in our mind that our database should be highly available. Means in case if any downtime is occurred, so at least we have another server that provide high availability or application won't be interrupted. But in this all entire scenario, we have a three options or three a way that is actually related with the high availability. One, we can say that is Azure, or it may be a on-premises SQL Server high availability. That is infrastructure as a service, means virtual machine. We have in Azure portal. So we are going to create or we create high availability for complete SQL Server environment. So in this situation, we should have multiple node cluster. So like for example, let me mention. So if we talk about the high availability at infrastructure as a service, that is, so this is something related with complete version of SQL Server, complete version of SQL Server. So like we have a virtual machine, like we can say, for example, we have multiple node, and all node are part of the cluster. So guys, we can create a Windows cluster there, Windows cluster, SQL cluster, and then we have a always on availability group. So guys, do not confuse between Windows cluster and always on SQL cluster and always on availability group. Windows cluster is Windows specific, Windows specific high availability means it's provide high availability at Windows OS instance specific, guys. So that is something related with the Windows cluster. Now second option, that is the SQL cluster. So we can get high availability at SQL Server cluster level, means instance level. So SQL instance level high availability. So that is one of the case. We can understand this one. Now we have another one, that is third, in infrastructure as a service. I'm explaining guys as of now. So infrastructure as a service means I have complete infra. I have an operating system that I can access. I have complete SQL server and I can access disk as well, data file as well. So always on availability group, it is a database level high availability. So this is a infrastructure as a service high availability where guys, what is the requirement for that? if we talk about high availability at infrastructure as a service, either it is a part of the Azure virtual machine or on-premises SQL server. So we need one domain controller, and then we need shared storage. Third one, we need a like a SQL virtual machine. SQL virtual machine. So for example, SQL 1, it can be SQL 2, it can be SQL 3. So this is a part of the infrastructure as a service. So when we are configuring high availability for infra, we need a domain controller that is normally called DC account, DC machine. And shared storage, guys, for infrastructure, we need a shared or dedicated storage. Oh, sorry, dedicated shared storage. So shared storage, so that if any node is down, another node provide high availability at a virtual machine level. Simple meaning, we can say if single virtual machine is down, then we have another VM which provide high availability. So guys, this is the one concept. The reason why we have already shared storage. So simple meaning, if we have shared storage, if one node is down, it won't impact for the data. It won't impact for the data file because it is available at shared storage, and that shared storage is accessible through all the virtual machine like SQL 1 can access, SQL 2 can access, SQL 3 can access. Simple meaning, if SQL 1 is down, not an issue. SQL 2 or SQL 3, any of that, we can set this priority, can become active node. So either SQL 2 become active node, then SQL 3 will be considered as a passive node. So all these three machines can access the shared storage. So that is part of the high availability at infrastructure as a service level. So that is the one concept. Second, let's discuss about the platform as a service. Platform as a service offering. Platform as a service offering. So team, in the terms of platform as a service, simple meaning, we don't have complete control over the machine. Like we don't have access the operating system. We don't have access of data files. We don't have access of complete SQL Server version. But in terms of managed instance, we have almost 99% access of the SQL Server. But again, we can say like operating system and data file is not accessible. Let me mention it here. If it is a Azure SQL, so platform as a service. So in Azure SQL, we don't have complete access of the resources. We have limited access of the system databases, like master database is accessible, but TampDB, I can say model MSDB, not accessible. So simple meaning, guys, as we can say, we have complete version here. So obviously it is a infrastructure as a service, high availability. But when we discuss about platform as a service, so obviously we don't have access, we don't complete access of the system. So in Azure SQL database, like it's a Azure SQL database is a platform as a service. So in Azure SQL database, we can create replica copy. So replica copy. So guys, I was explaining it is a database level high availability. It is a SQL Server instance level high availability. This is Windows Server level high availability. So this one and this one is like in simple word we can say they have a equivalent policies kind of. So it is also instance specific high availability. It is also instance specific high availability, but this one is for database level high availability. So Azure SQL database actually in a backend using the always on availability group concept. So Azure SQL database is a part of the availability group. Like a on premises, we use always on availability group. So in Azure portal in backend actually, like a replica copy or replica is being used in backend always on availability group concept. So this is called platform as a service. Now we have Azure managed instance. Guys, this is also a platform as a service. This is also a platform as a service, but it support 99% same functionality as we have in complete version of SQL Server. So in Azure SQL manage instance, Azure SQL manage instance, Azure SQL manage instance. So this is also platform as a service, but it support 99% same functionality as we have in complete version of SQL Server. So I can say when we are working with the high availability part for manage instance or Azure SQL database, so replication we can do, the replica we can create for high availability. So in Azure SQL manage instance, it support we can access all the databases. We can access all components of SQL Server except operating system and data file of SQL Server. So guys, this is the concept that I wanted to explain here initially. So we have an infrastructure as a service and then we have a platform as a service. Infra means complete virtual machine we have. We have a 3-node we can create a 3-node cluster, 4-node cluster, 5-node cluster. But guys, when we are working on that, so we should keep in mind either we can create a 6-node cluster or 7-node cluster. So either it is a 6-node cluster or 7-node cluster, any of the feature. So we should always focus on more than 50% node must be available. So guys, this is something we need to be keep in mind when we are configuring or creating a always on failover cluster instance. If it is a virtual machine specific, so more than 50% nodes should be highly should be available. So guys, if we check about the 6-node cluster, for example, 6-node cluster, and if 3-node is failed, so this is the situation, critical situation. So 50% node is down. So how it's make highly available our remaining 3-node? So guys, in this case, we can do one thing, 3-node plus 1 disk, 3-node vote. It can be a 3-node vote and 1 disk vote. It make it more than 50%, more than 50% node vote available, which is actually sufficient to run a cluster. So guys, when we creating this concept in our infrastructure as a service, we can define these things. Once we create a cluster, there is an option to create a quorum disk for the high availability part. So that quorum disk, although it is defined by default when we are creating a Windows cluster, but we can change the quorum setting as well. We can set up the node majority, node and disk majority. Guys, maybe possible this concept is seems little tricky, because maybe possible you may not did this part, but once you enroll for this course, you will be getting all these complete detail with demonstration. So this complete understanding will be covered in the complete course. As of now, for understanding purpose, we can say once you defining or designing a cluster, when we installing the Windows cluster, so obviously by default Microsoft Windows cluster select first disk as a quorum disk, and this quorum disk contain each node vote information. Vote is nothing, just a vote says, okay, I am available in the cluster. I am available in the cluster. For example, 3 node is running. So it says, okay, we 3 nodes are available in the cluster. 3 votes are available. 3 node is available. 1 vote we can specify for the disk. So this concept is called the failover cluster with quorum setting. So quorum disk contain more than 50% vote. If it is a 7 node cluster, so we can say it's not necessary to have more than to have disk vote, because if 3 node is fail, 3 node is fail, but 4 node still available. So more than 50% node available, which make cluster up and running. So this concept is called infrastructure as a concept. Guys, these things are managed in backend by Microsoft in Azure SQL and Azure SQL manage instance. Infrastructure as a service, we manage all these things. But when we talk about Azure SQL and Azure SQL manage instance, high availability part, it is managed by the vendor. It is managed by the Microsoft. So that is why Microsoft highly recommended to use Azure SQL and Azure SQL manage instance. Azure manage instance will give us almost 99% functionality to have this high availability part. Guys, let's see these things, Azure SQL high availability through the Azure portal. Let me mention this one thing here. Azure SQL high availability. Guys, there is a limitation for this Azure SQL managed instance because it is a very costly resource and it takes 6 hours to create. So I will give you like a discussion here. I will give you a points here, but for high availability, we will be checking through Azure SQL. Managed instance due to the costly resource as of now, and we have to create it previously actually. So the Azure SQL managed instance takes 6 hours to create. So that is why it is not possible to create at this moment, but we can create Azure SQL database and we can check high availability as well. Let's see. So guys, this is my Azure portal. I am Microsoft certified trainer. That is why MSDN platform subscription I have. In your case, either you will be using Azure Pass or free trial. It's up to you. So guys, this is the Azure portal I did. And now at the left side, as I can see, SQL database option is there. Just click here and I can see the SQL database. So this SQL database is called as Azure SQL. Click on create button and then scroll down. Resource group. The resource group is a collection of resources which actually share the same life cycle, permission and policies. Same life cycle, permissions and policies means at Azure portal level, we can manage the resource group. We can have multiple resources in a same resource group. It is easy to manage. It is easy to work with the resources which is a part of the resource group. So that is why we can select a same resource group for multiple resources or separate one. It's depend on production environment. So my DB resource group. So I am creating a DB resource group here. Click OK button. In the next step, database name. Ultimately, we are creating a database, Azure SQL database high availability part. So obviously, we have to specify the database name. So for example, I can mention Adventure Works LT portal. LT. Adventure Works LT is the database name I am using. Guys, if you are working on in the on the SQL server, so you must be aware about SQL Server instance. You must be aware about SQL Server login. So now at this point, we are going to create a SQL Server login. So SQL Server, for example, I am using Prem 2020. Guys, my name is Prem, so I am specifying Prem, but you can choose any up to you. And location, I am using East US. Guys, this is the most preferred location for us. The reason we normally don't get much error at this data center location. So I am selecting this one, but you can select as per your like a nearby location. So East US I am selecting. Authentication method. Guys, this is a platform as a service. And I mentioned already, we don't have access of the operating system. So simply, we cannot use Windows authentication here. Either we can use Azure Active Directory, or I can use Azure SQL and Azure Active Directory, or I can use the SQL authentication. So I am using SQL authentication here. Username, Prem. So guys, this is Prem is actually a login name. When we connect with the SQL server, Prem is login name. So PA55W.RD and PA55W.RD. Click OK button. And then I am this is the service tier I am selecting, for example, the same, not a problem. It is a like a per month cost as per INR. Public endpoint I am selecting. Guys, public endpoint means this database should be available by everyone, but those like users should be a part of the firewall rule. So if you see, allow Azure service and resources to access the server. Yes, within the Azure portal, this Azure SQL should be accessible. Like for example, I am working with the Azure Data Factory or Synapse Analytics or maybe any other component. So this Azure SQL database should be available and accessible. Add current client IP address. Guys, this is the actually option that we should be very careful for security reason, because I have selected public endpoint. So if I click on yes button, so this will allow me to connect with this Azure SQL database, or I can specify the range of IP address as well. This is a part of the like database admin in Azure course. As of now, just giving you overview about that. Security, choosing default, additional setting. Now this is blank database, sample database, AdventureWorks LT, or if I have already backup, I can use the backup. As of now, selecting blank database. Tag, review create, and going to create a database here. Create. I just click on database, click on the create. First, it will validate the database and then it start creating the database. So deployment is initialized. Submitting deployment. Guys, this deployment is started. Now let's move to our presentation. It will take small time. Meanwhile, we can discuss about it like a presentation. So far, guys, I explained we have an infrastructure as a service, high availability, where We can create a Windows cluster, SQL cluster, and always on availability group, where always on availability group doesn't need a SQL cluster. It can create directly on the top of the Windows cluster. So that is the one thing we discuss. Second, we discuss about Azure SQL database platform as a service. So we can create active geo replication. So active geo replication means the primary side is available for read and write. Secondary side is available for read only, kind of a read replica. Read replica means we can perform or configure load balancing. The primary server is available for read and write. Secondary server is available for read operation. Primary is available for read and write. Secondary is available for read only. So this is called active geo replication. So this active geo replication we can configure in high availability disaster recovery option for Azure SQL database and Azure SQL manage instance. So this option we have auto failover group. Guys, we have two options in the Azure SQL. One is manual failover and second one auto failover groups. Let me mention this one here as well for your understanding. Auto failover group. And we have a manual failover. So automatic failover means when any issue occur at primary side. Simply it automatic failover to the secondary, and secondary become primary, and primary become secondary. So guys, simply now one question arises here when we are working with the auto failover group. So one question arises here: what about the application connection, application credentials? In auto failover group, in automatic failover, it's automatically switch over to the secondary. We don't need to change the connection string. We don't need to do anything for the application connection here in automatic failover. But team, if we talk about manual failover, so obviously we have to change the application connection string and settings. So this is done manually, and we have to change the connection string manually. So this is the one option. We can say auto failover group and manual failover. Now Azure SQL database and Azure SQL manage instance active geo replication. So it's create a replica of the database in another region. Guys, why we need this active geo replication? Simple meaning, if primary server is down, so at least we have a secondary server which can become a primary. So now question arises, the question is here, why it should be in different region? Guys, we don't know about the natural calamity. We don't know about any earthquake, fire, or any technical disaster. So to protect our data, to protect our like a application connection and application or database, so we can configure it in a different region. Maybe possible. We have selected a specific East US region, and there is some issues occurred. There is some problem occurred. So if data center is down, so what about our high availability? What about our database? Because it is in the same region. We have 3 data center, for example. In a we have in single region, we have 3 data center. But if entire region is down, what about the database access? What about the database availability? So in this situation, we can configure like a different region for high availability. For example, East US, West US, second region. East US, Asia Pacific. or Dubai Central, means Dubai kind, or like a US Central or Australia, means any different region which is little far than the source region is always recommended, so that we don't face any like a downtime. That is the one solution, one like a benefit, choosing the different region. Second, having a different secondary replica is we can configure load balancing. Secondary region, secondary location is available for read replica, read intent purpose. So we can distribute our workload into two different region. First region is for write operation. Second region for like a read operation. So that's give us the very like a good benefit in terms of Azure SQL database. And guys, in the backend of the Azure SQL database and Azure SQL manage instance, it always use always on availability group concept. Now we have a plan or unplanned failover, or manual or automatic. So guys, plan failover, obviously when we are in maintenance purpose or maintenance operation or maintenance window. So obviously we can make a plan failover. Unplanned failover, any disaster occur, any disaster like occur, or any natural calamity or technical disaster, means anything is happen with the source. So that is an unplanned failover. Manual, we are doing it manual failover. That is something a plan failover. Automatic means unplanned failover, means if something is happen, it's automatically failover to the another region in the Azure. So this way we can protect our Azure SQL database or Azure SQL manage instance. Guys, let's see if it is created. Let me see. Yes, guys, this database is now created. So let's test. I am click on the go to resource. And guys, this is the server name. If you remember, I use Prem 2020. So this is the server name. And at the left side, I am scrolling down and I can see the data management tab. Under the data management tab, we have a replica. I just click on the replica. Replica is a secondary copy, secondary replica we are creating for read purpose and high availability purpose. So create replica. I just click there. When I scroll down, I can see server. So guys, I am not using existing server. The simple reason I have to create a high availability for that. So click create. So Prem 2029 this time I am using. And guys, if you see location East US, so it is not recommended. It is not needed. The reason why already we have primary server at East US location. For example, I am using East US 2. Guys, sometimes we get error selecting a different region. Sometimes it is not possible to create due to the limitation of the subscription, but we can check one or two reasons alternatively. Click OK button. So this is instance name, server name, and this is the data center location where high availability of the database is going to be created. So I just click on the OK button. Okay, now I am using this one. Again, Prem PA55W.RD, PA55W.RD, and then creating like a replica copy of the database. So that is fine. It seems fine. Yes, I am selecting. It should be available for access from different resources. This one, review, create, and create. So guys, I am creating a geo replica for the Azure SQL database. I already explained. So Azure SQL high availability is similar to the always on availability group in on premises. So it is creating. Meanwhile, we can move to the presentation. Let me see one thing here. Okay, guys. Yes. So Azure SQL database and Azure SQL managed instance active geo replication. So the secondary replica is kept up to date asynchronously. Potential of minimal data loss. So secondary replica is kept up to date asynchronously. Force synchronization can be done to sync for a manual failover with no data loss readable. So that's we can configure there. Guys, one thing we have to be keep in mind when we are configuring RPO of five RPO means recovery point objective. Recovery point objective means how much like a data if it is lost is fine. So that is called recovery point objective. For example, 5 minute data is lost. For organization, if 5 minute data is lost, so it is fine. Depend on the like a losses a organization can sustain or can like see. So 5 RPO 5 second not guaranteed if secondary database does not have same service tier of primary. Simple meaning. For example, I have selected a service tier, basic service tier. For example, basic service tier. So secondary replica should be selected basic service tier. The reason, guys, if we do not select the same service tier for both, so we may be getting, it may be possible to lose 5 second of data. So that's why service tier must be same. Service tier must be same for replica. So that is, guys, it is recommended to use this. Now, auto failover group. So let me just mention here, auto failover group. Automatic failover means when any issue occur at the primary side, it automatic failover to the secondary, and secondary become primary and primary become secondary. So it is automatically done by the Azure portal, built on top of the Geo application to provide an automatic failover option. So guys, this provide automatic failover option. So it is recommended to create auto failover group. I will be giving you demonstration from where we can create the auto failover group. Now name assigned to the auto failover group must be unique with the within the this. So Prem 2020.database.windows.net domain. In our case, let's check. It is created. So guys, this is Prem 2020 or 2029.database.windows.net. So this is the server name. Guys, we are using Azure SQL database. So obviously we have to write a complete server name for access. That is one. And failover group provide a listener to abstract connection from failover. So listener is receive incoming calls and hand it over to the like a specific like a node or specific database. Failover group offer two failover policies, automatic and read only. So default fails over after failure detected and grace period expire. So that is the automatic. Read only, enable read only connection on failover, disable by default. So read only means the secondary instance or secondary database is available for read only purpose. Let's see, guys, how it's working. So moving to the SQL database tab or blade, and now I can see AdventureWorks LT, AdventureWorks LT Prem 2020 is a primary like a replica, and this is the active Geo replica. If you see, Geo is written, so it is considered as a active Geo. Now let's do one thing. Click here and then query editor. I just click on query editor and wanted to connect with this and OK button. Okay, guys, I am getting error. This is a like a firewall rule error. So what I should do, moving to this. moving to this database and adding firewall rule, this one, and I am adding add firewall. This is I am using. Let's see, not this one. Let me see. Start IP. Okay, now as of now I am using this one, but you can specify a specific range, and I can specify the add a firewall rule as well. So save. This is done. Now let's move to the database again. This is my active Geo replica database, query editor, and now going to connect with this pa55w.rd and then OK button. Now guys, I am connected. Now I am giving you demonstration for the read replica. So create a table, test, id int, and execute. So guys, I am trying to create a table and it won't allow me to create. The reason why? Because secondary replica is available only for read purpose. We cannot perform write operation there. That is why I am getting this error. So this is a read only database. That is the one thing I wanted to demonstrate and explain. Now let's discuss another thing. This one. And for example, I am connecting with this primary replica again and moving to replica. Let's wait. So guys, if you see, this is East US frame 2020. This is the East US 2. If you remember, I have selected this as a secondary. When I scroll right, I can see it is readable. Readable means this is a secondary replica. That is why it shows me as a readable. And this is a primary replica. That is why it shows me online. Means I can perform read and write operation onto this database, this server, and read operation in Geo replica in this. Apart from that, I can see the 3 dot option here, 3 dots. I just click here. I can see a force failover. It is called manual failover or force failover. Stop replication means when I click on stop replication, so this secondary database will be considered as an independent database and it can be used for read and write. If I stop replicating data from primary to secondary, so that is for that. For example, I have already primary and secondary, but I wanted to use both a database as an individual database for read write. Then I can go for this option. But as of now, giving you demonstration for high availability. So force failover, manual failover. Yes. The request submitted for failover application. Guys, it will take time, approximately 2 to 3 minutes. Meanwhile, we can check one thing here. Moving to this and moving to the replica again. It is loading actually, and when we see the like a failover, now see the difference. Okay, now still it's loading, so I think it will take small time. So once it start like a switch over, it will be like the value will be different here. Let's click again. Let's click again. It take time actually for this operation because I have selected a basic tier kind of, so that is why it is not much fast as of now, but it will be failover and it will take small time to switch over. Let's see. Already I did it here, submitted. Now, meanwhile, let's see, it's submitted actually, so it will take time. I am going to the all resources. And guys, we can see the Prem 2020. This is my server name. And I wanted to configure automatic failover. This was that I shows it is a manual failover. click on SQL Server instance and failover I am tapping. This is the failover group. So this failover group failover group are a SQL Server feature designed to automatically manage your application, connectivity and failover of a set of databases. Guys, I explained already, if it is a automatic failover, it's automatically manage the connectivity and failover with application. Just need to click add group. I have to specify fail group. Server name, I can select any or I can create a new frame. This one, for example, I'm using. Login name, I'm using frame pa55w.rd. pa55w.rd I'm using. And then location, I can select any location depending on requirement. So let's see if it is available on. Okay, this location is not available for my subscription. Let's see South Central US. Yeah, it is available. South Central US is available for this failover group. I'm creating. So this is the read write grace period in the failover it's provide. So once it is failover, it's provide that, and then we can create. As of now, I am not creating because one of the task is already in is running, so it may impact some performance kind of. So this is just an example. We can create a failover group for automatic failover option. Manual failover I explained already. So we can go to this. Let's check again. Moving to the replica. It's loading. Still, let me do once more time. I think it is done. Readable. Guys, it is done. Yeah. If you see East US2, it was 2029 was secondary, and Prem 2020 East US, it was primary. And if you see, this is readable now. Let's cross check again. Prem 2020, it was primary previously. Let's test. Query editor and then pa55w.rd and then connecting. So guys, let's test create table T. I just created a table. Now we are getting error, guys. So it's proof that secondary replica cannot perform DML operation or DDL operation, and it is a read only. Previously, it was primary replica, and 2029 was secondary. But Prem 2020 become secondary now, and 2029 become primary as of now. So that is a one demonstration for high availability I wanted to demonstrate in this webinar, guys. Let's see one more things. Guys, manage instance is very limited, so I cannot say that it can be created now. It take approximately 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours to create. So manage instance we can create Azure SQL manage instance. Azure SQL manage instance. I can click on the create button. And this is the option. We can select any resource group. I explained already. A resource group can have multiple resources. So I can attach this manage instance with this group, with this resource group. My MG instance. So manage instance provide 99% same functionality as SQL Server. And this is the service tier. Configure manage instance. So guys, this is the service tier. General purpose 4 to 80 core, 32 GB to 16 TB storage capacity, fast storage. For business critical, it is something memory optimized. It's a IO intensive and compute intensive workload. So it is super fast. Obviously, it is super fast. We have to pay more. So this way we can apply any service tier. Obviously, when we apply, so we have to pay more. So you can see this is the cost per month. So this way we can create manage instance and it will take approximately 6 hours. as I explained already. So this is the main instance we can create. Hardware generation, we can select any of that depending on requirement. So this way. Premium series, memory optimize. Memory optimize means most of the table will be creating in the memory directly instead of disk. So that is a memory optimize can be used. So let's move to the presentation. This is manual, automatic, plan or unplanned failovers we discuss here. So manual failover, we can do force failover. Automatic in the case of any disaster occur or any like issue occur at the primary side, then it's automatically fail over to the secondary. And in that case, secondary become primary and primary become secondary. Plan failover normally it is happen when we have some maintenance task. So plan failover is work with that. Unplanned, as I mentioned already, some issues occur like something kind of a any technical disaster, technical problem, like power failure, data center fail, kind of. So in this situation, it is an unplanned failover. So that should be like we have in this Azure SQL database and manage instance. So guys, this is the auto failover groups that we can configure. We discuss about Azure SQL database and Azure SQL managed instance active geo application that we discussed. Now let's move to the our notepad that I explained. So I explain infrastructure as a service. Infra means we have complete like a resources. We have a virtual machine. We have a complete version of SQL Server. We have a complete OS, etc. So guys, one benefit we have in infrastructure as a service, we can install any software. Like for example, I wanted to configure data warehouse SSIS package. So in infrastructure as a service, this functionality is available. I can install SSIS, Visual Studio, SSRS, Power BI. Means so many things I can do with the infrastructure as a service because it is a complete like a computer or machine we have. Now we discuss about in infra, we have a Windows cluster, SQL cluster, and always on availability group. Windows cluster we discuss for high availability at node level failure. For example, we have 3 computer. First computer is down. First node is down. So we have 2 another node which provide high availability. And this case is called active passive. So active and passive. Active node provide service to the application. High availability. Now, in case active node is down, so passive node become active. So this is the node level failure high availability in terms of Windows cluster. Same for SQL cluster. So this is a Windows feature we install a Windows cluster feature. Then we can install the SQL Server cluster, SQL FCI, SQL failover cluster instance. And then it is a database level high availability group. It is called availability group at database level high availability. So guys, this is the one of the things we discussed for infrastructure as a service. Either it's a virtual machine level or data center level, like a computer level, node level high availability. We need domain controller, which actually provide like communication between node through the Active Directory users. Shared storage, separate storage we need, which is accessible, which should be accessible through all these 3 nodes. So this is a SQL cluster node. We can use these node for high availability or for failover cluster instance. So we discuss about 6 node cluster, we discuss about 7 node cluster. Now we discuss about platform as a service offering, Azure SQL database, We discuss about Azure SQL managed instance. So this is the database level, like a feature where we don't have access of the all system database. So this database is not accessible. Only master database is accessible in Azure. Operating system is not accessible. Operating system is not accessible. And I can say data file is also not accessible. In Azure SQL managed instance, operating system and data file is not accessible, but remaining functionality, SQL Server agent job, and like other things too, system databases, all are available in the Azure SQL managed instance. Now we discuss about auto failover group, which is something automatic failover concept it's provide. When any failure occur at primary side, it automatically fail over to the secondary. So that is automatic failover group, which can be created through the like a SQL Server instance in the Azure SQL. Manual forcefully failover we can do it forcefully failover. Primary can become secondary, secondary can become primary. Service tier is something like we should select for primary and secondary, same service tier must be selected for like a no data loss. If it is not same, we may lose 5 second data kind of. So we should be careful about that part. So guys, this is something that I wanted to explain in this webinar, and I hope this concept is clear. And if you are looking something more in depth learning, so guys, you have to be go for this database administration in Azure, like a portal. So Azure database administration in like for the Azure SQL database and manage instance. So guys, we have still 3 minutes remaining. If you have any question or any suggestion, please let us know. And guys, at the end of the session, you will be getting a feedback link. So please fill the feedback. And let me share like a one link over the chat box as well, so that you can like get the courseware as well. Just a minute. It's a achievement code. You can redeem the code as well. Please use this link for course and achievement. So guys, I hope the session was good, and I explain like a concept in 1 hour, because guys, 1 hour is not sufficient for the content, but obviously it's a webinar, it's a short duration like a call. So as much as I can explain, I did that. So for better understanding, for better learning, there is a course DP 300 that you can enroll. Along with I have shared link that you can get your courseware. So, and even Microsoft provide content in Azure portal. You can go through that as well to get like a very good and high knowledge regarding the same. So guys, you will be getting a feedback link. So please like spare time to fill the feedback. You're welcome.
Guys, you can follow us on LinkedIn. I've shared the official LinkedIn account link here. You can follow us and stay updated. Also, please do fill in the feedback, and you will get your certificate. I appreciate your time and efforts. Thank you so much for coming and joining this webinar. Thank you, Prem, for delivering the webinar. I'm here for next 1 minute. If you have any non-technical inquiry or issue, please get in touch with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Rupali. Thank you, Rupali.